A great opportunity for Charlotte was to position ourselves as a regional hub for music. Why don't we put together and host a regional conference, an event that brings people in?
Hello and welcome again to the rBeatz studio. I am your host, Terry Hudson, dream maker, and I'm an author, speaker, and a media host. And today on the program, we have a great interview. This is something that artists in the Charlotte area, which is our base, and needs to know about this conference, and they need to make plans if they can't get to this one to a future one. But you still have time to get to this one. If you're an aspiring artist that's trying to build a career, this is one of the most important conferences that I've seen as far as the way that they're structuring it for a new city, a city that is a growing music capital. And we have in the studio today who is the Chief Marketing Officer for Center City Partners. And he's also the brainchild behind Confluence Carolinas, which is the conference that we have here. And Music Everywhere in general, which is the name of their initiative there. I'm going to concentrate on Confluence today. So welcome to the studio, Rick.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So last time that you ran, because it was actually before the last Confluence, which was amazing. This will be my third one I've been to. The first one, great. The next year stepped up, and this year, so can't wait to get into that.
I hope so.
And it's going to happen on October 8th through 11th. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
2025. We'll talk about the venue, but we have a video if we can roll in before we get started. Is that good with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let's roll into that video, Johnny, and let people see what Confluence is about. And that's such an amazing event. And, when I was hearing years ago about the rise of indie artists and how technology was going to change that, make it more level field, I believed it because the right people were saying it, but I never thought I'd see it in action, like it is these days. I mean, if you will have an entrepreneurial mindset, you can do so much as an independent artist now that it was just not available. When I was an artist manager, we had it was a gatekeeper system with everything, and it made it easier in a way because you knew certain places to go. You didn't have to guess, on a lot of things. You would have to be innovative in some things, but now it's like you have so much at your disposal. And we talked about this last time. You had said the origin story of Confluence, and how did you come up with that, and how did you get where it's like a conference plus a fan event? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Watching that video brought back some fun memories. So it really started pre-COVID when we decided to launch this initiative to grow Charlotte's music ecosystem, which at the time we weren't even using the term ecosystem. Like, that's sort of a newer term that really describes perfectly what we're trying to do. But one of the things we realized, we did a bunch of research, focus groups, surveys, and looked around the country at other cities and some of the things they were trying. And it became clear that Charlotte, a great opportunity for Charlotte, was to position ourselves as a regional hub for music. We're the biggest city in the Carolinas, really between DC and Atlanta. We're kind of right in the middle of the two states. Mm-hmm. Finance capital, business capital, all the things that make Charlotte such a growing destination for lots of reasons. And we're surrounded by these great gigging scenes, scenes like Asheville and Greenville and Greensboro that are really rich with talent and musicians, but maybe don't have the concentration of business resources.
Even Durham has become that now.
Yeah. And Durham's a great example of really rich scene with talent, a little bit more business resources, but still. And so the idea was, well, why don't we put together and host a regional conference or an event that brings people in, that begins to establish those pathways, those connections, to allow the scenes of these other cities and towns to come to Charlotte, interact with each other, but also create this like critical mass tentpole moment that we could invite national industry in.
Yeah.
To create a reason for them to come to Charlotte, to see what's going on in Charlotte and the Carolinas. And, honestly, just by inviting some of them as speakers, that's a great way to sort of get them to your town, is put them on a panel or give them a platform and let them talk. And, we roll out the red carpet. We put them up in a hotel. We help provide travel if necessary. We do what we can to get them here. And then we try to show them a great time. So that's really where it came from.
And now, even when you started this, you couldn't have, you probably talked to enough people that you knew some of the things that were going to grow that would help you. But we were primarily known as a banking capital.
Yeah.
The sports team thing changed that a little bit. I remember I was watching a wrestling video with my wife. And because, I come from that world too, but it was an older video that they filmed at Memorial Stadium. And there were it seemed like 5 buildings in the skyline, and it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's grown like it has grown, and the housing boom here, all of that. But then our airport became, ranked as the most efficient in North America. And then I think one of the last reports I read was that it had just passed LAX as one of the busiest. Yeah, which is crazy.
Well, because American Airlines has a hub here, you can get a lot of places in one flight. We also have 2 interstates that connect in Charlotte. And so that's one of the things that we share with artists. And to your point earlier about independent artists and this notion of you don't have to leave. You can do it here because you can get other places, right? Yeah. So if you get hired on to play a session gig in Nashville, that's an hour flight. It's a 6-hour drive if you want to drive. If you can get to Atlanta easily, you can get to New York easily, but then you can come back home and live here for all the great reasons people want to live here. But you can build that music career here if you want to.
And something else has changed. We had a music scene here before, and what helped, I think, grow it different is you had all this influx of companies from, other cities that moved here. So safe environment. They moved here. The people marry, they have kids. Those kids get involved in music at such an early age now, and they become these great artists. I was amazed at all the artists we have. One thing we'll talk about later is the artists that you have from the concert side of it. And one thing that I was pleased to see, I was telling a guy that used to be a label rep about this last night. I was like, they have these concerts now, and I looked on the roster and I knew one name, which was great because, you usually know everybody's there, and you have all these new artists that are on these programs that are coming to be, or that are in here as part of the concerts that you have associated with Confluence. I thought it was really cool. Now, here's the thing with aspiring artists, and the ones that really work out, the ones that shine, have developed that entrepreneurial mindset. They understand the importance of education and networking. But there are a lot more out there that still believe you just get discovered. They believe that you do that pitch right then and somebody picks you up and I'm like, it's about relationship building. And this is the perfect conference. You have the city that, this is one aspect of it to me, that is bringing in all these speakers that you would have to fly in 12 different directions to meet yourself. Yeah. They're all coming in at once. You get to go there, listen to their ideas, and network with them. Their thing, they're walking around, you're broken into small groups, all these things that happen. How could you miss this? But I'd like to hear from you from a few angles too and talk about this. What about Confluence makes it a don't miss event for aspiring artists? Like, what are you offering that nobody else is?
Well, I think you capture a lot of it, Terry. And, I've been to a lot of the bigger conferences, and sometimes I get to the end of the day or get home and I have a stack of business cards and have no memory of meeting any of those people. And nothing against them. It's just, they're just so big. And I think the difference here is that, here's an example. I talked to one Charlotte-based artist who, during the Confluence, went up and introduced himself to 12 of the speakers. That's about a third of the speakers that we had in. And within like 3 months, he had follow-up conversations with 9 of them.
Wow.
Some of that's on him, right?
Building.
So he took the effort, the initiative to do that, but we created the conditions for that to be possible.
You did.
And it was really just about putting them in a room together. So, you're right. There's a lot of the education you can find on YouTube University. You have to have the wherewithal to spend the time, sit down, watch it, not multitask, et cetera, et cetera. But there's nothing like being in the room with the people delivering the insights and being able to walk up to them afterward, say hello, introduce yourself. And we do our best to curate speakers who are open to that. We don't really have a lot of speakers that hang out in a green room, come out on stage, go back in a green room, and leave through the back door.
No, and I've been at those conferences. I've been a guest on those conferences, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And the thing with this is they were accessible. They were, after the talks, they were in the audience. And we'll talk about the networking side, like you're providing it, but we'll go over some networking tips at the end of the show, because there are things that artists do that kill their networking pretty much immediately.
All of us. Yeah. It's not just artists.
Kill relationship building. And that's what it is. It's not, you're not just building a contact, you're building a relationship, over time. So we'll get a little bit more into that. But I read on your website about some of the areas covered, so I just wanted to go through that.
Yeah.
If you have time for that. Okay. So we're talking about artist management power moves.
Yeah.
Which, as an artist manager, a former artist manager, I'm telling you, these guys, you have established managers there, but you have a lot of aspiring managers that I met last year that are working with these new artists. And that's one thing about an emerging city, is you don't have as much red tape. You have opportunities as an entrepreneur and an artist manager that you're not, going to have anywhere else. Booking gigs, that's like the number one question. A lot of people think the artist manager does that anyway, and it's a totally different thing. And it has to start off with the artist. You're also going into, this one alone to me was worth it for the Charlotte scene, which is turning fans into movements and talking about Superfan platforms. I knew about those. I knew a couple artists that knew about those, but I didn't know a lot of people in Charlotte yet. And when I went on and saw, and we'll go into this in a moment, saw who you had as speakers, I was like, they're already on this. Like they're seeing something that people didn't even know was a thing, and it's coming to Charlotte. Not just somebody representing, but you have the reps, but you also have the CEO.
Yeah, the founders.
And so that's a great thing. Cracking the AR code, because that's something different for those, everybody's trying to meet the AR of a record company. It's just changed so much. The whole system's changed, and this is the way they can find it. But this is another big one. Finding the cash and sync and licensing.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities there. It's less closed than it used to be.
Right.
It used to be in LA, there were like 5 people that ran it, and good luck, making that happen. But now I talk to people in Nashville and Orlando and all these, and some in Charlotte that are already, with these networks, and you have so many streaming services and commercials and opportunities, to get your songs placed. I know for sure we had at least 2 female artists in the city that got their songs placed in one of the dating shows, which was really cool. Really cool to see. So in that, how do you pick the speakers that you know are going to, represent both the past, the modern, and that'll fit the needs of the city and the artists coming to see it?
Yeah, so one of the things we really figured out early on is we wanted to build a conference for where the industry is going, not where it's been. And that's no shade on that. I love listening to stories about, the industry 30 years ago. But we didn't really want to do that. Because we also think that's where Charlotte's position is. If you're choosing to make music or be in the music business, really in North or South Carolina, you're kind of doing the hard thing, but two, you're focused on where are things going. And so we wanted to bring in speakers who were working on that, who were either working on solutions to current industry problems, or even some of the managers we have. So the manager panel, I'm really proud of that one. The bands these managers represent are REM, and Ben Folds.
Let's give that name. That's
Avett
Mike
Brothers. Mike Kopp is Ben Folds. Burtis Downs is REM, the only manager REM has ever had. Avett Brothers with Dolph Ramser.
He was a great speaker too.
And he's been a regular for us. We have Lenny S. from Roc Nation, who's DJ Khaled. So these are well-known artists, but also artists that even REM, who's not an active band, they are still relevant in a lot of conversations.
Right.
These are artists and bands that are sort of charting the future. Ben Folds is a perfect example. So they can tell some of those stories, but also talk about where are things going. And so that's one of the things we looked at. We also looked at accessibility. Speakers who are willing to sort of converse with audience members,
I love that part.
Be available for one-on-one mentoring, which we're offering this year, and also people that were excited to come. A lot of I've learned pretty quickly if it's a lot of back and forth and convincing and sort of negotiating, it may not end up being the best experience for anyone.
It's not going to be there for the artist, and it's not going to be there for you. It's going to be a headache for you trying to do the event.
So we're excited to work with people that are like, I've been wanting to get to Charlotte, or I've been wanting to get back to Charlotte. I've got family in Charlotte sometimes. And so they're excited to be here and be a part of it. And they get the vision. It allows us to say, this is what we're building here, not just with Confluence, but with music in Charlotte and North Carolina. And they say, that's really cool. Like, I love that you're doing that. How can I help? How can I be a part of that?
Yeah. And, I've interviewed the past people too. And one thing I do find really valuable about them is their Rolodex. I mean,
100%.
But when it comes to
the lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
So, like, here are the mistakes I made, and I'm going to share them with you in hopes that you don't make the same ones. That's super valuable.
And when you're talking about the future, here's another thing that artists, they'll look at an artist and they'll play cover gigs and they're trying to make it as the next artist, and they're trying to mimic something they're hearing on the radio right now. With the artist that recorded that song, recorded that 8 months ago, and they're already sitting with their managers and their booking agent and their producer, and they're trying to think, okay, where are things going next? So they're having to look at that, because that is the way that you build something. So if you're an artist in Charlotte or regional area, just aspiring artist, unsigned artist, period, and you're trying to become that, that's how you have to think. Like, you do have to know what's current. You do have to understand some things about the past, but you really have to be in the know about what's happening in the future.
And I think
that's where you're going to get your hit from.
Well, and also, and we've heard this, I feel like this is a theme every year, which is be authentic.
Yes.
Don't worry as much about what's the popular sound. Maybe if you want to get
art.
Exactly. Like, express yourself in the way that is truest to you, and fans will know that. They will sense that. And one of the beauties of the way that the industry is fractured a little bit, or fandom is fractured, is you don't need 1 million fans. It's nice,
your tribe,
right? But if you get your tribe, and there are countless examples even today of artists who you and I have never heard of who can sell out the arena downtown.
Yeah.
Because they have their fans who are willing to do anything for them, and that group is super devoted to them. It doesn't mean they have to appeal to everyone, and they respond to that authenticity.
In that conversation, you used 3 words. You used super and fans and even in those three sentences. So it brings me to something, which is, one of the things people look at streaming. Streaming is, how people, I guess, discover you, hear you. But streaming doesn't pay like it should. But when you combine it with a Superfan platform and those guys that know how to connect the two of those, the amount of streams that you have to do to make money becomes significantly less.
Yeah.
And to me, the forefront company that's doing that is Even.
Yeah.
And you have an artist rep coming from Even. I think her name is Selena.
Yeah.
And then you have the actual founder, which is Mr. Rodriguez, Meg. Yeah. And that is one of the most important things to, of course, you're the founder and you're the guy booking it, so you can't say. I can say there's two major things that you need to be there for, and then the other is icing on the cake. But Even, you need to go find out what that is.
Yeah, I've sort of been stalking Mag online for a couple years, and it took multiple attempts to, just because he's so busy, to connect. And once I did, it was a no-brainer. He was like, "Yeah, I can't wait. How do I be a part of this?" And what they have built and what Tommy has built with Single, who's also on that panel, and then what Neil has built with Volcana, all of them are different ways for artists to basically reach their fans directly. Support the fans. You give the fans, you reward the fans for being fans, and then also get paid for it. We did a bunch of research early on with Music Everywhere, and we found two things. One is lots of fans that were willing to basically hand over money to their favorite artists just to allow them to keep doing what they do, and artists unwilling to ask for that money. That's sort of like two problems in a way, right? So what these founders have done are creating solutions. It's like, here's a way to activate those fans who care the most about you, and you're able to sort of give them something, and they can give you financing in return. And that's what it's all about. And you can skip some of the go-betweens. You can skip the Spotifys and the Apple Musics, which are really just marketing platforms today, because you're not going to make any money off of them.
But they're still great things. And I hear a lot of artists that say you just can't make money in music anymore, and those are the artists that haven't done their research. You can make more money than ever before.
There's a lot of different ways.
Understand the entrepreneurial way, like understand what's out there for you, and that your fan they absolutely want to support you. They just don't want to do it in the way that it used to be.
That's right. Yeah, it's not about record sales anymore, unfortunately. But then again, what is it, like more than 50% of people that buy vinyl don't have a turntable? They're buying that record to support the artist. That's why they're buying it. It's a piece of that artist that they can take and hold and look at. That's what it's all about. And so what Even has done and what Single has done and Volcana is creating ways to further that exchange. And I really can't wait to hear them all together on a panel talking about what they're doing. I'm really excited about that panel, actually.
That is going to be a highlight. And there's going to be another highlight, and I want to talk about that right after the break.
Okay.
So, I sound like the host of one of those talent shows.
Coming up
Who's
next?
going to win? Find out right after the break. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our friends and our sponsors and what's going on at rBeatz. When we come back, I'll still be talking to Rick Thurman because I'm in front of the door, and he has to get around me to get out of the studio. So he will be here. We'll talk about what I feel is a great highlight that he secured this year for the conference. And we'll be talking some other important things, including the concerts that are involved in Confluence. And we'll be right back after this.
We're very honored to be here today and to form a partnership with Michael and bringing an American Hockey League team to Charlotte. We really feel that this is a huge step forward to the growth of hockey in North Carolina and in the South.
This is my new home.
Yet, he scores! The longest game in American Hockey League history, and we are in the midst of it. Rebound chance, St. Patrick's. They're going to the Calder Cup Finals. The Charlotte Checkers are Calder Cup champions. They are the kings of the American Hockey League, and there's no one left to beat. Lawrence can win the game. Fake shoots!
It's been 590 days since the last hockey game in Charlotte, and the Checkers will don a new affiliate on their sweaters and a familiar face as their new captain.
Nash out in front, dangling, shot, he scores! Checkers with it, rebound, Carlson buries it, we're back tomorrow night! On the right wing board, Samoskevich finds some ice, shot, he scores! And the Checkers have their first lead of the Queen City Outdoor Classic! Number 124 for number 21, the new franchise record.
Welcome back to this week's segment of What's Trending Now on rBeatz Radio, Media, and Streaming Network. Take it away, Greasy. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And now let's get started on our upcoming local, national, and international concerts. Starting off with the electronic artist Bunt, going on his The Greater Round Tour, taking place at Black Box Charlotte on Tuesday, September 16th. Doors open at 8 p.m. You can get your tickets at blackboxcharlotte.com. Greasy, ever been to Black Box?
You know, I haven't had the pleasure of being there yet, but I heard it's a great room to check out. Like, she good show.
Let's get a performance going right there. Calling all Katy Cats. Katy Perry is headed to the Madison Square Garden for her Lifetime tour, taking place on Monday, August 11th. Doors open at 7 p.m. You can get your tickets at msg.com. Greasy, what's your favorite Katy Perry song?
My favorite Katy Perry song has got to be Chained to the Rhythm. That's a guilty pleasure.
A classic bop, indeed. Chaperone is headed to the Rose Bowl Stadium in California for her pop-up show, Visions of Damsels and Other Dangerous Things, taking place on Friday, October 10th. Doors open at 4:30 p.m. You can get your tickets at rosebowlstadium.com. Greasy, when's your next performance?
You know, I'm going to be all week long in Kannapolis at the Atrium Health Ballpark playing for the Kannapolis Cannonballers baseball team.
Go check them out. This is Annalise Pearl and Greasy Keys bringing you all the new details on the latest trending water cooler conversations. Stay on top of the rBeatz and rBeatz app, always bringing you the best of the best independent, national, and international music artists. Constant influences are on the rBeatz app. Y'all know the drill. Now let's get started with this week's DJ World Beats top trending songs. Spinning now on 25.8 366, our global pop stream. DJ World Beats brings you Bad by Dylan, The Contract by 21 Pilots, and trending now on rBeatz Radio, our house and EDM stream, we have Tape on My Lips by Mayella, Pick Up the Phone by Sophie Tucker featuring No No, High on Me by Rossi and Jazzy. Coming up on We Global Radio, our hip hop and R&B stream, we have Suzanne by Ray and Mark Ronson, Pretty Girl Perks by Carly, Fire and Dolly by Bombay Mami, Keeping It Going and Everywhere by Too Short featuring Holiday. And stepping up on the main stage on our Spotify playlist Only Bangers Hits Different, we have Is Everybody Having Fun by John Summit featuring Gorgon City. Closing out on USA Heroes, our classic rock and country station, we have Brunette by Sierra the Rapper, Ghost Town by Willie Tate, Walking on the Edge by Sons of Legend, Monsters by James Blunt. And that concludes this week's countdown. Be sure to check out our social media sensation show, What's Trending Now, and be sure to check out the watch list with Greasy Keys right here on rbeatz.com. That's it for now. Take it away, Greasy. Thank y'all for watching.
And we're back. Got Rick Thurman in the studio, and we were talking about Confluence Carolinas, which is just an amazing Music Conference. That's here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It takes place October 8th through 11th, and that is at the Union, which is the Wesley Heights neighborhood, correct?
Yeah, actually, we're really excited to move to this venue. It's
love
an
that
old
place.
beer bottling plant that they've redone. I think it'll allow everyone to have a chance to be more together. It's a really cool space. They have great AV tech. It's going to be awesome there.
Yeah, and it's just a cool visual. It's got that kind of Camp North End, kind of.
It's got a great courtyard with a little skyline in the background.
Yep, very cool. And so we're talking about the speakers, and we also one couple that we didn't cover, of course, with Cherie Hu, which is just the tech genius, will be there, and you've seen her on the business shows. I think even MSNBC, I think, has had her on before, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would say she's sort of the leading music technologist in the country.
Yeah.
She is studying and mapping out where all the investments are going in music tech. So she's going to be a keynote speaker for our Music Tech Summit, which is a part of Confluence, but at the very beginning.
Okay, very cool. And of course, Roger Brown, he has his own company now. Is it
the Salt Lake Incubator? Yeah, a band incubator in Boston.
Yes, but he's also, if I remember, the former president of Berkeley.
Yeah, 18 years. He was president of Berkeley College of Music, and he's also a Davidson grad. So he's
I didn't know that.
School in the area. Yeah,
I didn't know that about him. So let's talk about who, to me, is your whale for this year. That I was surprised to see. I was, hyped up on some of them that I already saw, but then I saw this, which was more of a recent announcement.
Yeah.
So I'll let you make that one for those that are not familiar with Neris, if you'll explain that too. But they should all be familiar with Neris.
Okay, yeah. So I assume the first one you're talking about is Panos Panay?
Yes.
Okay, so Panos Panay is the president of the Recording Academy and the Grammy Awards, right? So he's the real deal. And he actually worked with Roger at Berkeley.
Oh.
So Roger will be conducting the fireside chat with Panos. And I have to credit our superstar volunteer, Liz Brigham, with figuring this out. And we're really excited to have him. He's coming into Charlotte. He'll be here for a couple of days. He'll be speaking on Friday in the afternoon at the conference as our keynote and being interviewed by Roger. And he could not be a nicer guy. We had the Zoom prep call, and he was taking it from Greece, where he's from originally. And he, super nice, excited to be a part of it, warm, friendly. And I think he'll have some great insights, both on sort of what do the Grammys mean today and some of the changes they've been making in the Grammys, but also just the state of the recording industry in a way that I think a lot of our audience will relate to.
Yeah, and he comes from such a background. He has a great book that I'll promote later that I think came out in like 2021, where he has interviews with a lot of celebrities and music legends about the state of creativity and how things work there. But I was a voting member with the Recording Academy for a long time. So NARAS is the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and that's who hands out the Grammys. Has an incredible process. They send you these. Of course, they might do it different now because I stopped my voting when I first left the music industry a few years ago. But they used to send me these thick books. You make your entries, and people come in, with the entries, and then you get it finally narrowed down to the top entries, and then the nominations, and then of course, great award shows known for so many incredible performances. And I think it would be good for artists to come in there and just have an insight of how that really works. And one of the things that I see is there are a lot of people that get in that first entry process, and I won't hark on this matter, but it is something artists need to take into consideration, is they get in the entry process and then they'll label themselves as a Grammy nominee. It is a little bit different, and you do need to understand the difference in that process because it does affect your marketing, not maybe with your specific fans, but the industry looks at that and they think less of you. And so that's something I don't want to happen to Charlotte artists because I believe in them so much. I'm a champion of the aspiring artists, as you know, and I love when stories happen and people make it out of here and they use this as a base and they're known for more than just a city. So I want them to have that best shot. This is a way that you're going to find that out, is coming here and seeing that process. Let's talk about your concert lineup.
Yeah.
Because how many venues do you have, and what are those venues? Because you have a few.
Yeah, so we'll be in total, I think, 7 venues. And one of the things that's really cool about this year that we finally were able to get arranged is it's all walkable each night. So one of our goals with it is to get people inside these independent music venues, to have them, let them have that experience. We found that a lot of fans in Charlotte area, hey, I'm a live music fan, where do you go? And it's the big shows, right? It's the arena, it's the Live Nation venues, and those are essential to the ecosystem.
Yeah, because Confluence isn't just for professionals. We've been talking a lot about that, but you've included the fans in on this.
Well, and so fans can just buy a pretty cheap pass to just the music, and you can walk back and forth. It's an all-access pass. So these venues they're in one neighborhood Thursday night, the NoDa neighborhood, and then Friday night, they're in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood, all within a block of each other. And, 30, 40-minute sets. So it's almost like a sampling. And we really are helping people to understand and push this is about the experience of going from venue to venue and discovery. It's about discovering artists that maybe you're not as familiar with, but were curated or picked through a showcase application process. And it's across multiple genres. We haven't yet announced our hip-hop showcase, but really excited about the lineup.
Which that's only the second year of that.
Well, we've done it each year.
I just noticed it last year. I thought it was
a little bit bigger last year than it was the first year. So the first year was maybe a little more of an experiment. And
do you think Fair Play played into that? I know that was part of something that developed out of the census that you guys originally did.
So Fair Play's been a big partner in just helping make sure that everything we do is reaching diverse audiences and tapping into that. But from the beginning, this area has a great hip hop scene.
Oh yeah, they're known for it. Yeah,
and also throughout the state with J. Cole and others. So we wanted to make sure that's fully represented, and also hip hop's where a lot of the action's taking place. Right, that's where a lot of innovation is happening, a lot of market innovation is happening, a lot of great partnerships, a lot of independent underground stuff. So we want to try to highlight that as best we can.
And something I didn't realize until, of course, a couple years ago, I married somebody from Colombia, my wife, Karma.
Yeah.
But I started going to all the festivals and getting involved in that community too. I was amazed that there's also a lot of Latin artists, that are growing in this city, and a lot of, big artists come here for the festivals as well. So and I'd heard, I think there's 70,000 Latin Americans that are in Mecklenburg County.
And it's a growing number. And, frankly, that's not a scene that we have tapped into yet musically.
Because it's so new.
Well, and it's also, it's its own scene in a way. But we did have as a speaker in the past years a promoter who puts together huge Spanish language music festivals. And I would say that's on our goal list is how do we have I would love to have a showcase that's entirely in Spanish of artists playing, but also help, or maybe mix it up, but help English speaking audiences discover those artists as well and realize this is just about great music. And in Charlotte, it is this kind of a hotbed for that scene for sure.
Yeah. And we have so many, I guess we're very diverse, because that was something you and I met for coffee before any of this, took place. And one thing you told me, if you'll do what you're doing and Tosco will do what he was doing, we named all these people involved in the scene, then it'll grow, because you've always said it's not one effort. Of course, your effort has been gigantic. Since you've gotten involved in this, but everybody has been doing the things, and you see all these areas grow. So now we have of course the hip hop, you have the R&B, you have the country music thing with Bailey Marie and Anna Jay and Garrett Huffman and all these guys that are rising up. And then over here, indie rock is growing, Modern Alibi, and these bands that have been coming up. And one that you had championed, which was Of Good Nature, that phenomenal Cam guy. So you have these. And another one, of course, is the gospel world with churches like Elevation and Transformation. Every time my brother goes to the Dove Awards or the Grammy Awards, he always runs into Elevation guys, on the red carpet, because they've risen
every time
to
they
this
drop
level
a song.
now.
It's number one in Apple Music right away.
And that comes from our city as well. So we have this diversity when it comes to our music community. It's like we're the, I would say that we're the crossroads city. That we have these banking capitals, and we have this art renaissance that's happening, with all these visual artists. Of course, you've been a part of that with Central City, and you guys have Victoria Yards and, these amazing places. And, of course, you have Shout Charlotte, or do you call it Charlotte Shout?
Charlotte Shout, yeah.
I always get that wrong. Just like my wife, kept saying North Campion. So I had to switch her around that. But in that, we are that crossroads city. It's like we have the finance and the tech companies mixed with the arts culture, mixed with this diverse group of musicians. I really think that's what we're going to be known for.
Well, and it's such a fast-growing city that means people are bringing with them influences and ideas from all over the country, really. And so that feeds that. And I think, and most people are coming here to build a future for themselves, and that feeds that as well. And we think that's one of the strengths of the music scene here. You know, early on in our work, there was a lot of questions around, well, what does Charlotte sound? Because I think a lot of times we associate a city with a particular sound and think that's a music city, right? It's jazz or blues or country or hip hop. And
maybe that's how the top 5 were built. I think that's our identity.
Well, and I think that's the thing is that Charlotte has this already and an even greater opportunity to be known for a diversity of sound. And that's why we try to put multiple genres on the bill for the concerts for Confluence.
Yeah, and you were somebody that understood cities and how they worked. You came from a magazine.
A city magazine.
Yeah. But you were a magazine that was covering everything about the city. So you came from it as a music fan, and I think that's what makes you work so well. You know, is the fact that a lot of people would get into it from the music industry. I've heard so many that were planning music conferences. They were going to do these type of things. But the way they would come at it is almost like there were these rules and regulations of how things had to happen. You come in as a curious person. You know, I always say curiosity is a superpower.
Right.
So you come in, and because you're covering the restaurants and you're covering the music scenes, you're a fan. You're curious about this, and you come and you build something totally different. And you have created, like we said, the industry side, but you've also created the artist side, and the diversity with that is the same thing over here with the professionals. I mean, you've covered tech, you've covered the live performance, the booking, the gigs, all of these things, and I think this is key to developing these artists, the aspiring artists here. So let's talk about how they network in these situations, because I think that's a big part of it. So artists come in, they want to be discovered so bad, but just like in any networking situation, they walk up and they pitch their entire story right then instead of relationship building. And you've probably seen this at the conferences. I've seen it at others where they'll come in and they'll meet a record executive, let's say, or an artist manager, and they'll tell them everything about them right then. Sometimes they have these postcards, as well.
Yeah.
And then they're playing their demos on their phone. Have you ever looked at the people's faces when they're pitching like that?
They usually, I would say, their eyes are kind of darting around the room looking for an escape.
Yeah. So in a relationship building situation, and to be a real artist, I have my thoughts on. I would like your thoughts. What is a better way for them to do that as a conference organizer?
Yeah, I think 3 things. One is prepare. Look at the schedule, look at the lineup, look at the speakers, and decide and think about who are the people that I want to meet, and understand that, so that you say, and maybe it's these 5 people, for whatever reason that might be, and make sure you meet those 5 people. Make that your goal. And I know that will be possible at Confluence. Anybody on that list, if it's somebody you want to meet, you will be able to do that. Go to the panel and walk up afterwards and introduce yourself. And I think here's the key is don't try to do it right then. You make enough of a connection that you plan to follow up, and then do it. I think
know something about them. You were talking about research. Know something about that speaker.
Yeah, know a little bit, and so that you can have like an authentic connection afterward, right? So it's, hey, thanks for sharing that, and I love what you're doing with Even. I'd love to talk to you later to learn more about it, and maybe there's some opportunity we have to work together, something like that. It's maybe not the best way to do it, but make enough of a connection to where, hey, if they're really interested, they might say, hey, well, we can talk now. You got a few minutes? Definitely don't pass up an opportunity to have that conversation in the moment.
But especially they created, like they initiated that part.
Or if it's like, hey, you want to meet up for coffee tomorrow morning while I'm still in town? You want to go with the bird in hand. But I think sometimes even more valuable is like the artist I mentioned earlier, that you make a promise to follow up and get that phone number or email that, goes right to that person, but then do it. I think the number one mistake, and I've made this myself plenty of times, is the conference is over and then maybe you've stepped away from all of your stuff for a couple of days and you get back and it's like, oh, I got to take care of all these things. I'm super busy. A week passes, 2 weeks passes, 3 weeks passes. Then when you do reach out, you don't get a response because they don't remember who you are.
Right.
Because they met 30 people. But if you can follow up very quickly with some kind of jog of like, even in the subject line, met you after your panel at Confluence, and then something that says like, I'm the guy, I'm the tall guy that was talking about XYZ, where they place it a little bit. It may take a couple follow-ups to be candid, but if you are persistent in that, I'm pretty sure you will get that follow-up conversation where, and I heard so many examples of that. Another artist I know did that and was able to get her song licensed for a sync library.
Oh.
And it was just because she walked up and they had a conversation and she followed up and the lady said, well, I need songs about home. I think was the thing. She's like, okay, I actually have a song I wrote about that concept of home and what it means to people. Shared it with her and said, this is great. I'm going to put it in my library and offer it up. So and I think the last thing is quality over quantity. It's not about trying to meet 40 people because you won't remember them and they won't remember you. I think 3 great conversations is much more powerful than 30 drive-by conversations.
Yeah. And this needs to be done because one of the things in growing as Music City is we need some real breakout artists. And we have, I would have said at one time maybe 5 potentials I know about, but I probably know at least 20 or 25 potentials now that could break out of the city.
Yeah.
And they just need certain things. And, learning these at something like this are the right connections. But when you said quality, you want the quality of your people that you're meeting. You don't want to overburden yourself. And you don't want to, I can tell you if you hand out 75 business cards and each of one of those people get 40 business cards before they leave here, what's the likelihood of because creatives have ADHD. I've found out a lot.
Sure,
that seems to be the case. And so when you run at home and you have to stack, you have to lay out this thing of, 40 business cards on your desk and who are you going to call? That's not likely the way it's going to happen. But, have quality follow-up, pick the ones you want, and like you said, focus on that. But another thing about quality is have something quality, to send them.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's what's going to get you noticed. They're looking for people that are serious, just like we do here. We have a criteria for artists, that we put on the show because we believe in the independent artists. We just want to make sure they're at the level that when we present them, somebody is going to notice. And of course, it's the same thing here. I'm so glad I had you on because I know you're super busy because you're one of the people that run this city.
No, I don't know about that. Let's hope not for all our sake.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the music scene, you're at the top of the list and you're doing great things. And of course, you are involved in the arts too, because I run into you at quite a few things.
Yeah, big supporter of all things creative and creativity for sure. Music is my passion, but I show up at lots of stuff.
So how do they buy tickets? Where do they go for this event?
Yeah, thanks. So confluencecarolinas.com is the website. Our early bird tickets are actually still available through September 7th. So,
I thought that had cut off in August. I was wrong.
We kind of secretly left it open just for opportunities like this. So we got a few more days to get before the prices go up. You can also follow us at Confluence Carolinas to stay updated. Most of the schedule and lineup is online now, but we still do have some surprise announcements to share in the coming days, things that we're still trying to pin down. I have a call right after this with someone really exciting that I'm hoping to lock in. So, but now is the time. Now is the time to make your plans, get your tickets, start mapping out your plan of attack, and because we're going to make available, we have the workshops. It's like a small additional fee to keep those small, some incredible workshops.
They've always been incredible.
Yeah. And then we also are adding this year the signing up in advance for the one-on-one mentoring. So that is, I think most of our speakers are making themselves available for this, and you would sign up in advance for a 15-minute one-on-one with, it's sort of first come, first serve. So the sooner you have your ticket, the better chance you have of getting one of those slots.
Yeah, and of course, if like you said, if you're a fan, you can buy just the concert tickets as well.
Yeah,
They're
right
all
now
available in the same place.
It's like $30, honestly, for 2 nights of music in 6 different venues. It's a great deal, and it's a really killer lineup of artists, all of whom are based in the Carolinas.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, this one thing that I've seen. These are handpicked, artists, from auditions that come in, from everywhere for the materials are sent. So these are well picked. Some of them you may not have heard of, but when you go there, you'll be blown away at the talent that you see.
Yeah, and show up on time for these. I'm telling you, the showcase acts are the ones that are, the first or second slot in most cases. Those are the ones that came through application process. And there's some amazing talent there. And then we curated some acts on top that we know will draw and sell some tickets. And so they're later on, but do not sleep on the 7 o'clock shows for sure.
Absolutely. And again, my friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you, Terry, for the work you're doing, hosting this show, having on all these amazing artists. I'm honored just to be a part of it.
Well, you're a great man, and this music community, really, we appreciate everything you're doing. And we appreciate you for tuning in and telling your friends about rBeatz and helping us grow so fast. It's been kind of staggering sometimes, but you're the core of that because you tell your friends, you interact, and you watch the shows. And, of course, tune into the shows with Greasy Keys, Annalise Pearl, Jen Busco. Can't say enough great about them. But I want to also, since we're here at rBeatz, and she does not like me talking about her on air, but Wendy Kahn is another pillar of this music community and her vision.
Wendy's great.
And Wendy is the founder of rBeatz, so we want to say that, and her great team. And hopefully you get to come in and meet them sometime. So, again, until next time, much love. See you soon.
Hey there. Like what you see? Want more? Then listen up, like, love, and subscribe. Just do it. Sharing is caring. For more, check out what's next on rbeatz.com.